Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Balderman, the Mayor of New Lenox. I want to thank you for taking the time to come out here tonight. It's great to see some kids here as well. I mean, I know this can be a difficult topic to talk about, but certainly burying our heads in the sand and saying it's not going to happen to me, it won't happen to my family, we know that's not necessarily the case. Drug addiction and issues with drugs happen in every socioeconomic class, every race, both genders. It knows no boundaries. There's this stigma that anyone that has a drug problem is a criminal or a lowlife or a scumbag, and that's not the truth. It's a disease. Addiction is a disease, and there are people who get hooked very, very quickly, who desperately would like to have help, but it's a very difficult thing to overcome. Family members that try desperately to help their children or their loved ones to no avail, because the power that these drugs, and I know we're talking about heroin in particular, but just drugs in general, the power that it has over somebody's mind and spirit and body is very difficult to combat. So we, several years ago, when heroin became an epidemic out here, and it is an epidemic, came out here, we had an assembly, a program over at Lincoln Way Central that was well attended. Here, as the mayor, I'm very proud of our town, but I would never be naive enough to say, well, that doesn't happen here, because it does. It happens in every community, regardless of how affluent or how many great families you have living there. So we would rather tackle the issue head on and do everything we can to promote awareness and support. So I want to say thank you to all those that are presenting here, to the area police departments. Also, a big thank you to Dr. Monica Schmidt and Lincoln Way West for opening their doors to us. They care deeply about the students that go through this building and students in general, so thank you for your support. And to all of you who have very busy lives, I'm sure, but you came out here. So thank you. I hope it's very informative, and have a great night. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Wistacki. I'm a detective with the Naperville Police Department, and this program that I created is very personal to all the presenters. We all have a story, and I just want to tell you my story as far as why we're doing this program all over the Midwest. In December of 2001, I was on call at my police department as a detective, and I got a call on December 23rd to an accident, actually I call it a homicide, where 4 kids got into a car after a party. The driver was intoxicated, high on weed, couldn't handle and negotiate a turn, hit the curb, side of the car went into a tree, and the girl in the back, Stacy Blendell, died of a head injury. A few months after that, we did the investigation. The person was arrested, the driver was arrested, and 3, 4, 5 months after that, I met with this mom of this guy who we arrested, because after a Bible study at one of the largest homes in Naperville, he got caught selling weed down the street by the school, her 14-year-old son. So as I'm meeting with the mom, I'm like, what is it with your family? You have the means, you have the resources, you have the ability to get your kids help. What are you doing or not doing that are having all 3 of your kids being addicted to drugs? She says, I'll tell you what it is, detective. Yes, we have this big house. Yes, we have a lot of money. Yes, we have a lot of means. But you know what? When my kids came through that door, I know they smelled like weed. Their eyes were bloodshot and glassy. And they'd come through the house and they'd go right upstairs to their bedroom. I said, come down here. I want to talk to you about what you did. And I took that big parent smell And what did he tell me? Mom, I wasn't doing it, they were doing it. Yeah, I was in a car with them, but it wasn't me. She says, Detective, I'm going to put this back on you. If you come up with a plan that parents can detect what types of drugs their kids are doing, and it stays in the home so we can deal with what's going on, you would be doing every parent in Naperville a great service. I said, you know what? I'm going to take your challenge. I researched, and I researched, and I researched. Probation, parole, laboratories, whatever. And I found a drug test kit called MedTox that, and I don't get anything from the company, just putting it out there, that this is what probation and parole uses for their people who are on probation and parole. And within 5 minutes, you test for 7 different types of drugs all in one shot, right in your own home. So we started, as part of station adjustment with our juvenile unit, getting parents who we caught their kids doing drugs, selling drugs, whatever, and started drug testing them. And it is a huge, huge stick for your children to carry when they go to a party and they say, hey, take a hit of this, try a little of this. And they say, I can't, my parents drug test me. Everybody leaves them alone. So it's such a good feeling to see all of you here, because you're going to hear a lot of stories. You're going to hear, you're going to see, you're going to feel the horrific facts about heroin. You are going to see the different stories and how it affects all of us. And I'm going to show you the face of heroin.
You know, as a father, you want to be the best role model and parent you can for your children. You surely don't think down the road that you and your son are going to be heroin addicts together because he followed in my footsteps. The heroin epidemic here is absolutely out of control. It's quadrupled in the past 4 years, and on a daily basis, kids are dying. On my same kitchen island I cooked food at every night, made my kids cereal. My oldest son and I were snorting lines of heroin together. He said, Dad, you're a successful drug addict. And I said, why would you say that? Well, we've got a nice house, you got an office in the Wrigley building, blah, blah, blah. I said, Nick, you know the struggles and war I fight every day. I was wanting to die, I just didn't care anymore. Shannon, my former wife, called me at 6:30 in the morning and said Nick overdosed again. We got to Hinsdale Hospital, said Tim and Shannon Ryan here to see our son Nicholas. He overdosed, and 30 seconds later the chaplain walked out. I knew the cards were up then. And I went in to identify Nick first. In the wave of emotions that, you know, I set all this in place. He had 20 years old. Then I had to walk back in the room and tell Shannon, yes, he's passed on. That is the worst day of my life. The absolute worst day of my life. I unleashed this monster with my own son. I helped kill my son. The heroin epidemic is by far the country's biggest secret because nobody wants to talk about it. We have 120 overdoses a day. Heroin use is happening the most in the suburbs of middle-class America. Today, heroin is the new in drug for kids to do. A bag of heroin today costs $5. That's less than going to the movies. Every kid that uses heroin will become a full-blown heroin addict. They don't realize how powerful this drug is and that it will absolutely kill them. I got a call a week ago on a gentleman, Mikey, 24 years old, I was working with. We talked at 10:05 Thursday evening. I told him, don't die on me, Mike. I got a call at 7:30 in the morning that Mike didn't make it. He succumbed to a heroin overdose. You know, you need to give up your shame, your guilt, your ego, your pride, and who cares what other people think? You live in your house with your spouse and your child. You better do everything you can to get that child to help before it's too late and you're standing at their grave. I will do anything in my power to help any addict out there and any parent struggling with this. This generation is dying. This is an epidemic that this little drug called heroin is destroying. You know, kid, if you give me 90 days, I will give you the opportunity to have a life. If not, you will die. A lot of people are not listening to these kids, or they're not seeing the signs where there is an issue. I'm the guy that's going to listen to these kids. I am the face of heroin. I'm Tim Ryan. They call me the dope man.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tim Ryan.
Thank you. That's the reality of drug addiction. I want you to understand, first off, I'd actually just like to take a quick moment of silence for the sick and suffering addicts still out there struggling in the world of addiction. Thank you. Again, I'm Tim Ryan, grateful recovering alcoholic. I also go by our 68915. That's my Illinois Department of Corrections number that'll follow me for the rest of my life. Been to prison, a number of county jails, made millions of dollars, had 15 businesses. I was very, very successful. But I destroyed everything due to my alcohol and drug abuse. This morning I got to spend the morning with a father who lost his 18-year-old daughter in Naperville Saturday morning to a heroin overdose. And unfortunately, I have a lot of friends now that have lost their kids to substance abuse or been drunk driving a car and got in a car wreck. But anyhow, what started me down this road, I have no idea. I came from a great family. My mom helped found a company by the name of Market Day in 1974. Might have heard of it. My father was senior vice president in E.F. Hutton, 26 years. He never missed a day of work, never called in sick. We ate dinner at 6:30 every night. Had a wonderful life. Grew up on Crystal Lake. What I did have was something called dyslexia, ADD. I was in all the slow classes. My daughter at 3rd grade could spell better than I could. I just don't have it. Adverb, pronoun, I don't know what they are. So I got into high school. The way I fit in was with mind-altering substances. Drinking age was 18 when I grew up in Crystal Lake, up in Wisconsin. So from 14 years old, I was going up to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, drinking every weekend with the 17 and 18-year-olds fitting in. I used humor to get in with people. I was very witty. And I had a great work ethic. I've worked since I was 9 years old. I went on to college down in Louisiana. Had the best water ski team in the country. I was a competitive water skier. 16 to 21, I was one of the top-ranked barefoot water skiers in the nation. And I threw all that away due to my drinking and drug use. Ultimately, at 21, I checked myself into drug treatment. Parkside Lodge, Mundelein, Illinois. I was abusing a lot of cocaine and drinking at the time. There was 38 of us in there. 11 were police officers from the Chicago Police Department. So my thinking right away was, well, those coppers got the problem, not me. I just wanted to figure out how I could drink like a normal person. I can remember one man coming in and speaking, and there was 38 of us, and he said, one of you will be sober in a year. I said, what'd you say? He said, one of you will be sober in a year. I said, what do I do? He said, don't drink and go to those 12-step meetings. That's what I did. Upon release from treatment, my father sat down with me. He said, Tim, I couldn't work. I'm running the whole country for a huge firm, and all I'm worried about is what did I do wrong? I said, Dad, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, well, I did learn those Al-Anon people got to my father. He said, Tim, I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it, but I can contribute to your addiction, but I won't. You're welcome to come back to the house. You start drinking and using drugs, you're out. I started going to those 12-step meetings for a year and a half. Started an asphalt seal coating business, ran a barefoot water ski school. Things were good, but I never applied anything to my life. Get a sponsor, work the steps. Obviously, I went back out drinking and using drugs, and that's the way my life went for the next 28 years. 1996, I was working at a management consulting firm. How I got the job, I have no idea. I barely got out of high school, but I met my wife there. And I took Shannon out for a drink. And the first date, she said, "Do you do drugs?" I said, "Absolutely not." She said, "Because I have a 3-year-old son who's got a deadbeat dad that was a drug addict, and I want nothing to do with someone that does drugs." I said, "I don't do drugs." I said, "Okay, we'll go on a date again." She came back to Naperville. I went to Chicago and bought an ounce of cocaine. My whole life was a lie. Took her about a year and a half to figure out that I was abusing drugs. We got married, another child. I had adopted Nick, and she was already stuck in my world. We ended up having 3 more kids. My drug addiction progressed until one day, one of my children were about 13 months old, and I'd been up on a 3-day bender snorting cocaine, and Max was crawling into my office. And I went and picked him up and put him back in his room. And I opened my office door, and there was cocaine all over the floor. If my son would have picked up one of those rocks of cocaine, it would have killed him. So I started going back to 12-step meetings. Made it about a year clean and sober. Again, I never applied myself, but I met a friend there. And that friend asked me to take him to Chicago to move out of his apartment. Me, the nice guy, did. Got down to the apartment, started moving some stuff out in his roommate's office, said, "Hey, you want to try a bag of heroin?" Of course, I'm a year clean and sober, but I wasn't applying any of the life skills. I tried that one bag of heroin. It took me down a 12-year road to utter destruction and hell. I wouldn't wish alcoholism or drug addiction on my worst nightmare. I don't glamorize opiates. I don't glamorize drinking or drug use, because all it did was steal everything near and dear to me. But it took me ultimately going to the Illinois Department of Corrections to get clean and sober to figure that out. I had a job making a $250,000 a year base salary. I made another $150,000 a year in commission. We built a beautiful house, and my heroin addiction took that away. 2008, I went to prison for driving on revokes every time I was going to score heroin. They gave me a year in prison. I did 61 days. I learned absolutely nothing. I got out. My wife said, "Tim, I'm going back to nursing. So I'm going to nursing school." I said, "You don't need to work." She said, "The way you're living, you're going to end up in 2 places. You're going to end up dead, or you're going to end up back in prison. We got 4 kids I need to take care of." I started another executive search firm, had a beautiful office in the Wrigley building, making money. I went right back to ripping and running. See, my thinking was I could buy my way out of things, or I'm not like those other people. December 16th of 2010, Shannon was having a big party with all the girls from nursing school coming over. I opted to drive one more time. I took her car while she was taking a shower, went down to Chicago, bought some heroin, and I'm just checking my timeline here. Bought some heroin. My drug dealer says, "Tim, you better be careful, this is a strong batch." So I snorted 2 bags. Got in the car and I pulled over to the McDonald's on North Avenue in Grand, and my brilliant thinking is, well, I'll just shoot up a few more. I did that. I put my stuff away. I sat there, well, I'm not dead, and I started driving. Then I woke up in West Suburban Hospital being told I killed 2 people. The police officer was so mad that another person had overdosed, and I took out 2 cars. I didn't kill anyone, but I did put 4 people in the hospital. I don't remember a thing. I spent a week in jail, got bailed out, and went right back to doing drugs. Hired the best attorney in Chicago. My grandiose thinking is I'm going to beat this case. I didn't realize how bad I was destroying my wife and kids and everyone else. So I overdosed one more time while fighting that case. Woke up in Rush Copley Hospital. My face is beat up. I'm naked. I'm laying there, and my wife's standing there crying as usual. I said, "What happened?" She said, "They found you dead in the middle of the road in Aurora at 11 this morning. I said, "Hold on." I was at my good friend Rich and Missy's house. And I remember we were doing heroin, and I overdosed. And my good friends dragged me down 2 flights of stairs as my face was beat up, and dragged me 2 blocks down the road and left me for dead. That's what your good friends do when you're in this game. Got about 4 months left prior to going to prison, and my oldest son, Nicholas, had struggled with his own addictions, marijuana, ecstasy, in and out of trouble. And I was really bad. I was doing about $500 a day worth of heroin, and I had run out and I'm dope sick, and I'm in the bathtub taking a hot bath, and my 17-year-old son walks in and he says, "What's wrong, Pops?" My kids knew I did something, but they really didn't know. Nick caught on. And I said, "What do you think, son?" "I'm dope sick." My son left 2 bags of heroin on the bathroom counter. He said, "Not anymore, Dad." I got out of that bathtub, snorted those 2 bags of heroin, and I went in my son's room. I said, "Nick, what the hell are you doing?" "Don't worry, Dad, I'm just selling a little bit." I said, "Nick, you need to shut this down immediately. You know what this drug has done to me." And these words will haunt me forever. My son looked at me and said, "Dad, you're a successful drug addict." I said, "Why would you say that?" He said, "You got a beautiful house, you got an office in the Wrigley building, we make a lot of money, you make a lot of money." I said, "Nick, you know the wars and struggles I fight." 3 months later, my 17-year-old son and I were snorting lines of heroin together. That's where this disease will take you to. Ultimately was sentenced to a 7-year sentence in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Thank you, Judge Wattis, you saved my life. In Illinois, there's 28 prisons, 2 are drug treatment programs, Sheridan and Southwestern. Unfortunately, they just shut down Southwestern. We have 1 drug treatment program out of 28 in this state. By the grace of God, I got to Sheridan Correctional Center. But while I was on my way to prison, I didn't sleep for 35 days. I defecated and vomited on myself for 2 weeks straight. When I walked into prison, I weighed 158 pounds. That's where this disease of addiction takes you. Today, I'm about 215, give or take 5 pounds, maybe 10. But anyhow, prison humbled me. It broke me. When I was sitting there, I looked up, and God, whatever's up there, I said, "Take away this obsession and compulsion to use, and I will turn my will and life over to you." In prison, my wife of 18 years divorced me. I displaced my family. We lost our beautiful 5-bedroom house in foreclosure because of my self-centered actions. My oldest son, Nick, was still struggling in addiction. Even though Shannon divorced me, she brought 2 of our kids to visit me every 2 weeks. Upon release from prison, I walked into a townhouse in downtown Naperville she had found for me and furnished for 3 reasons. So I could walk to those 12-step meetings, I could walk to the train to go to work, and I could walk. I got out, went back to work for 3 months and set up my foundation. And then I quit my job in the technology space, walked away from that career, and this is what I do today. My 20-year-old son was back in Gateway for the 6th time. I went to visit Nick, and I said, "Hey, Nick, man, about time I was 18, 19 months sober." I said, "Nick, we can do a lot together." "Yeah, Dad, you're right." 30 days out of treatment, Nick was back in Cook County for selling bogus pills to buy heroin. I talked to my son every day in jail. Best conversations I ever had with him. It was honest, it was raw. Upon release from jail, Nick's mom picked Nick up, fed him, said, "Nick, you're not coming home. You're not at my house, you're not going to your dad's house, we're done." "Don't worry, my girlfriend's gonna pick me up. We got all these grandiose ideas." 5 days later, I called my son. I said, "Nick, come to my house and get some Narcan. Reverses the effects of an opioid overdose." And he said, "Don't worry, Dad, I'm not on that BS anymore." 2 days later, Shannon called and said Nick overdosed, came and picked me up. Got to Hinsdale Hospital, Tim and Shannon Ryan to see our son Nick, and the chaplain walked out 30 seconds later. My son died on my 21-month sobriety date. As soon as the chaplain walked out, I knew the cards were up. What was my first thought after that? Anyone? What was my first thought? You know me, Tom. Most people would say I wanted to use, I want to go get high. Never thought in my mind. My first thought was I'll be at 6 o'clock 12-step meeting that night. And that's what I did. I dealt with things the way they happened. And it's a difficult, hardest day of my life. I set all that in motion, but what I got to realize is I was 21 months clean and sober the day my son died. And I was the only one trying to help him. 2 weeks after Nick died, about a week prior, I was talking with Shannon, and she said, "I hate God." So what are you talking about? She said, "God didn't answer any of my prayers. I hate God." I said, "Shannon, what I'm going to say is going to sting, but I need you to listen to me." She said, "God never answered my prayers." I said, "Shannon, maybe God did answer your prayer. It's just not the answer you were looking for." "Well, what do you mean?" In all of our eyes, we think our loved ones struggling in addiction are going to get clean and sober, going to marry a beautiful lady, going to have a couple kids and a good life. That wasn't God's will. Higher power, whatever it is, called my son home. A week later, Shannon and I had lunch, and she said, Tim, I really thought about what you said. She said, I'm behind you for once in your life, 1,000%. Go out there and do what you're doing. She said, I truly believe God put you in my life and Nick's life to go through all your struggles, for Nick to go through his, for Nick, unfortunately, to pass on to set the stage for what you're going to do next. And I'm just beginning with what I'm doing. A little bit about what I do today. I work about 120 hours a week minimum, but it's not work. God uses me as a vessel, had me go through all those 28 years of hell and torment to give me the tools today to get through the person that's suffering out there, or to help the families. I wrote the business plan for my foundation in prison. Man in Recovery Foundation, we take people from dope to hope, helping one addict at a time. We guide and direct people into treatment, whether they have no insurance, state insurance, or good insurance. I can get anyone in within 48 hours. Upon release from treatment, we guide them into sober homes. I run opiate support groups in 5 different towns. I've got 8 more lined up within the next 60 days. But I have the parents come with the addict at the same time. My group in Naples on Thursday nights, I have anywhere from 50 to 75 parents there every Thursday night, and anywhere from 20 to 40 addicts. I have parents that come from this town to my group. They drive 45 minutes. And the parents that show up, their kids are in active addiction. The parents think their kids are doing something. Their kids are deceased. Their kids are in treatment, in jail, or coming out of those places. There is hope. Don't think this won't happen to your child. Don't be naive. Good family, we go to church, we have dinner together, and you're not with your kids 24 hours a day. One bad choice is all it takes. Everyone sitting in this audience right now, if I lock those doors and we all smoked marijuana and drank alcohol for a week, maybe 3 of you might have a dependency issue. But if I lock those doors and we all did opiates for a week, every person in here will be a full-blown opiate addict, no questions asked. 120 people a day die from opiate overdose in the United States of America. Opiate overdose is the #1 killer, more than car accidents. This is decimating generation. What we need to do is drop the stigma. You know how many parents I work with, and I ask them, if you told any of your neighbors or workers that your child or loved one struggling with substance abuse, God, no. Well, why not? Well, I don't want people to know. What if your child had cancer, diabetes, lupus? Hell, we'd be having fundraisers. This is a progressive and chronic disease that will kill people, but nobody wants to talk about it. It's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. We had a memorial skateboard event for my son August 1st. That was his year passing in Oswego at the skateboard park. Shannon and I had a bench made. 150 of his friends showed up. We catered food. About 10 of his friends came up to me and said, you know, Tim, we knew Nick smoked some weed. We knew he drank. We knew he ate some ecstasy every now and then. But if we would have known he was doing heroin, we would have done something. And that's what you need to do. If you have a loved one struggling, you need to ask for help. If you're struggling, you need to ask for help. The hardest thing for someone to do is put their hand up and say, I need some help. Today I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I have a beautiful baby girl that was blessed by the Lord 4 weeks ago. If I make it to November 1st, chances are I will. I'll have 3 years clean and sober. Taken aspirin 4 times in the past 3 years. Outside of smoking cigarettes and chain drinking coffee, I don't take any mind-altering substances. My life today is about other people. It's about giving back. But I'm the guy that gets called in to clean up the messes. We're doing some neat programs in Dixon, Illinois. We're the second town in the United States to where a drug addict can walk into the police station and say, here's my drugs. I want help. We'll put them into treatment, no questions asked, on the spot. We started this program 30 days ago. We put 18 people into treatment. We can't arrest our way out of this problem. Drug dealers absolutely need to be arrested. Drug addicts, though, they need treatment. And it takes a community to come together. The mayor, law enforcement, families. It's easy to blame and point and do that. You know, we got to come up with some solutions here. Because say no to drugs doesn't work. Kids are going to experiment. But if they experiment with things like this, Pandora's box is going to open. I'm keeping an eye on my clock here. And I know I've got 42 seconds left, Rich. See that, Sean? It's called a timer. Sean likes to talk. But I want you to get educated here. I want you to ask questions. Our next guest is a personal friend of mine that lived here in your community that unfortunately lost a child to substance abuse. Tom and I are in the same club, and I don't want any parent in here to join our club. I met Tom right after his son passed away, and then my son passed away. I will stay here until I talk to the last person tonight. In these bags, my card's in there. If you have a question, pick up the phone and ask. Educate yourselves. I'm working with 2 chiefs of police right now with their kids that are drug addicts. In the past 6 months, I've put a couple police officers into treatment. I put a couple nurses, and I put a couple school teachers. Don't think this doesn't affect you. The youngest heroin addict I've worked with in the past year is 12 years old. The oldest is 72. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Tom Moore.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name's Tom Moore. You're going to have to bear with me. This is the first time speaking in front of a large group, but I'm going to do my best. First of all, thank you to the police department, Tim, Man in Recovery Foundation, Kyle the kid who's here somewhere, Detective Richard Wistocki, and Officer Ferguson, the Dare to Know program, Mayor Balderman, Lincoln Way School District 210, and everyone else who put this together. This is truly something this community needs. Tim called me yesterday morning and asked if I would talk today. Why? Because my whole family has been affected by heroin. Heroin is one of the most addictive drugs known to man, and it is cheap and readily available, and it is in this community right now. I've lived here 24 years, and I love my community. By you all being here tonight, you are showing me that you love your community too. I'm grateful. Together we can make a difference. Here is a very condensed version of my story. In the fall of 2012, my wife and I confirmed that both of our children were using heroin. My son was 16 and a junior at Lincoln Way Central. My daughter was 17 and a senior at Lincoln Way Central. They both spent the holidays in treatment at Rosecrans in Rockford, Illinois. Both of my children grew up in loving home. They were athletes and honor roll students. They knew right from wrong. They had good morals. That all changed when a bad decision was made and they tried heroin. In a very short time, heroin will destroy your loved one and leave behind a lying, stealing shell of a person that you will not recognize. My daughter left treatment. She finished treatment after 45 days, came back to school, made up all her work she missed in the fall semester, and graduated on the honor roll. My son was afraid to come home. He moved into a sober living home and finished his junior year in Rockford. He was afraid to come home. Things appeared calm the summer of 2013, but in reality, it was just the eye of the storm. In the fall, heroin sucked my daughter back in. Heroin gets such a grip on the user that it is near impossible to kick. She would spend the next 6 months struggling in and out of her addiction. My son went back to school at Lincoln Way Central in the fall. He immediately fell prey to the lure of drugs and peer pressure. Everything he learned and the 8 months clean he had under his belt were out the window in an instant. My son became obsessed with altering his brain and easing his pain. We call that self-medicating, which is something we all do. On the Friday before Labor Day weekend, he overdosed at school on Xanax. He was taken by ambulance to the hospital, and 2 hours later they released him and told us he's going to be sleepy all day today. So my son, who had a brain disease called addiction, was expelled from school and enrolled in an alternative school. As far as I knew, Jake never used heroin again, but he was convinced getting high was the only escape for his pain. He used alcohol, pot, Xanax, Klonopin, Adderall, ecstasy, Molly, mushrooms, acid, anything he could get his hands on. We caught him one time stealing morning glory seeds from the grocery store because he read online that you could crush them up and make a cocktail and get high. That's where his disease took him. Life at home was very terrifying. Everything they owned of value was pawned. We tried to keep everything of value that we had left in our bedroom, locked up. I slept with my wallet underneath my mattress. Medication, jewelry, cash money was all kept locked in a safe. We walked on eggshells every day, waiting for the next bomb to drop. In January of 2014, I gave my daughter an ultimatum. I said, get help or get out. To that point, it was the hardest day of my life. She left the next day, the day before her 19th birthday. She chose heroin over family. She lived on the streets or crashed on someone's couch for about 30 days. She was finally arrested for possession, and she sat in the Will County Detention Center. Imagine her surprise when she called from jail, and I told her we would not bail her out. I remember her saying, Dad, get a lawyer, we can beat this. That wasn't going to be the case. She went through withdrawals and detoxed in jail. She was there about 2 weeks when on March 5th, my son passed away. I found him unresponsive on the couch early that morning. The autopsy report listed 7 different drugs in his system, but none were at lethal levels. Even though I told them his history of drug abuse, his official cause of death was heart arrhythmia, which happens to be the same thing that's on Elvis Presley's death certificate, heart arrhythmia. Does anybody ever remember Elvis dying of heart arrhythmia? No, we think differently. It was ruled natural causes. There was nothing natural about it. My son's body could take no more, and his heart gave out. My daughter has been in recovery ever since, coming up on 19 months clean. I stand here and tell you there is hope. People can and do recover. The people I have met in long-term recovery are some of the most compassionate humans walking the earth. They have been to the gates of hell, and they have made it back. But the reason we are here tonight is you. Heroin loves silence. It loves the secret. It loves when you think, not me, not my kids, not in my neighborhood. Heroin is demonic. It will create destruction as far and wide as you let it. So what can you do? Coming here tonight is a great step. I know many of you here, and I know there's probably many new faces, but you're going to hear tonight things that can be done. Get educated on everything. Talk to your children, whatever age they are. Talk to them frequently. Drug test them. If they're not using, they don't care, okay? And it makes for a great debate around the kitchen table. Why are you going to drug test me, Mom and Dad? And just open up that conversation with your children and start young. Buy the drug tests. You can get them online. They're $20 at the grocery store. You can get them, many other places, but get them. Hold that. Let them know they will be drug tested. It's a great tool, as we've heard. Dare to know. Know what your kids are doing. Research heroin, opiate pain pills, benzos, Adderall, the club drugs that are out there, spice. There are so many out there. Be aware. Know what your kids are doing. If you love somebody who is struggling, get Narcan. Have Narcan in your house. Have it in your car. Narcan reverses the overdose deaths. You can get it. It saves lives. Get trained and carry it with you. Most importantly, though, if you love someone who's struggling or if you are struggling, get support. For me, my support, besides my family who's all here today, I've got 4 generations here. Facebook support groups, you know, I love Facebook for this reason. I found Tim at A Man in Recovery. There are so many others, Open Hearts, Open Eyes, a group called PATH, a group called Live for Lally, The Addict's Mom, which is nationwide, TAM Illinois, Hero, United We Can, Rise Together. You'd be surprised if you searched how many support groups are out there and how much information you can gain from them. And it is a forum where nobody judges anybody and you can ask questions and find out answers. So in conclusion, I just want to say, hate the addiction, not the addict. Have some compassion. These people don't want to be addicts. Like Tim said, the drug dealers need to go to jail. The people who are selling to support their habit, it's a different story. This program that's going on in Dixon, Illinois, which started in Massachusetts, somebody can come in, you know, when an addict asks for help, there's a very small window where you can get them help before they're going to go out and use again. So to have something like that in place is just amazing. Have compassion for these people. You know, in my experiences, I've found that drug use is a symptom of a bigger problem. There's something deep down inside that wants that person to self-medicate. There's some kind of pain that is causing them to use that needs to be addressed. You know, just stopping the drugs, going to treatment for 45 days, especially when dealing with heroin, 45 days is nothing. It's a walk in the park. They will be back before you know it if they don't address the issues of why they were using in the first place. I'm no expert. These are my opinions. So please get educated, talk openly and often with your children, and I thank you all for being out here. This really makes my day seeing everybody out here, so thank you very much.
My man, Tom Moore, one of my dear friends. Our next guest and speaker, my dear friend, Sean Ferguson.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming out, Mr. Mayor. I kind of wish you were my mayor at times because some of the things that you said out there were really good things to hear, some of our leadership to say that. I'm going to cover some things from you just from the street cops level of dealing with drugs. I was a narcotic detective in Naperville for 4.5 years. And people say, oh, the mean streets of Naperville, huh? Well, it's not so much the mean streets that you need to be concerned about. It's the type of town that Naperville is that drug had penetrated and penetrated on a level that took everyone by surprise. The things that I want to talk to you about is like the pattern that we see with it. Again, this doesn't hold true for every single person that's ever done or suffered from addiction, but one of the things I looked at as a detective, which made me really weird in the drug community, was I like to sit down and analyze data and look at things as opposed to just knee-jerk reacting to whatever case came across my desk or whatever opportunity I ran myself into. And I started to see the pattern of heroin coming to our town and the things we were seeing, and I would approach my supervisors and be like, hey, is anybody seeing this? I mean, this thing's taking no prisoners here. Cops, we don't have any kind of thing that we can do to really curtail this. And I got a lot of support in getting out and educating the community. Naperville as a city and as a town really embraced the education aspect of this. To be in plain English, a lot of people were completely clueless about what was going on with their kids and right under their own nose, and preconceived notions about drugs and how it's defanged and made something into innocuous things in the media and the community and in college and everything else. Those are the kind of things that we had to kind of break down for people and say, like Tim said, Pandora's box was opened decades ago. This is the end result. When we use drugs to escape, we use drugs to deal with every little bit last of pain that we have to deal with in our lives. These are the things we have to deal with. So first things first, we saw, hey, most of the people we dealt with, they start out with Mother Green here. Again, cannabis. What is cannabis? First and foremost, if you don't know what cannabis is, welcome to Earth. Cannabis, everybody knows what cannabis is. It's weed. Everybody smokes it. It's completely defanged in the media right now. Legalization. Rappers use it. Oh, come on, everybody's mellow. What are you cops complaining about? Bottom line is it's a launch-off point. Everyone that uses cannabis doesn't become a full-on heroin addict. But every heroin addict I've ever interviewed, and I've in the hundreds at this point, told me one thing. How did it start? Man, I started smoking weed. They didn't even talk about alcohol. They didn't talk about anything else. They said, man, I just started with smoking weed. Bigger, faster, stronger. That's what I moved on to. I didn't care what the cops thought. I just wanted something better. And how it all broke down was obviously cannabis is a lot bigger and better than it used to be. The ditch weed that some of us were exposed to when I was in high school, back in the 80s, is now ditch weed. That was high-end stuff that we were getting. Now, a lot harder. Those are some of the common names for it. 420, chronic, weed, pot, all that stuff you hear about in rap tunes and people singing about it and all this other stuff. That's what this is. The better the quality, the more strings and strands you see in it. Dried out stuff that you're getting sold when you're 14, when you're in your 20s, you want that high-end stuff, BC bud, stuff that's being grown right in the United States. The Mexican farmers don't even grow it for the cartels anymore because they've got something bigger and better that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But the bottom line is that it's quality stuff. People can grow this quality stuff in their own home at this point. I used to be the grow guy because I like to sit down and analyze data, and that's what you had to do. We had grows in Naperville, 20, 30, 100, 1,000 plants in a home, and it was that high quality weed. Each plant can produce 3 ounces every 90 days. That's a ton of weed for one guy. Weed is, if we talk about wars, drug wars, I'm going to tell you this is my personal opinion, not the one of the city of Naperville or the Naperville Police Department. We've lost that war. We've lost that battle in the war on drugs, if we want to call it that. Because right now, it's moving way in the direction of, hey, it's harmless, it's no big deal. Again, I would caution you about that. Some of the things about it is it's mind-altering, it's psychoactive. We all know that. Anybody that's been around long enough and seen people smoke it or smoked it themselves knows what it does to you. It makes you funny. It makes you hungry. It makes you fat. It makes you all of those things if you do enough of it. The bottom line is it makes you unsafe when you're operating a motor vehicle. Those are some of the things you need to think about. Again, packaging. There's a pound. If you see a pound of weed with your kids or in your home, too late. Way too far gone. A pound of weed is a lot of weed. That's a grown man's hand right there. Most ounces, zips, what your kids refer to those things, OZs, that's another common amount that people buy. You can blow through that in a weekend with your friends. 28 points, I think 6 grams is what it is. You can get through that in a weekend. Again, those are grams of dime bags that you can pick up. There's a blunt. That's wrapped in those flavored tobaccos you see at the gas station when you walk up to the counter to check out. It's next to the 5-hour energy. Nobody smokes grape blunts for the tobacco. The embargo has been lifted in Cuba. I think we can actually get Cuban cigars now if you really want good tobacco to smoke. Dominicans, when somebody says, oh, Dad, I just smoked it for the grape flavor. Okay, you're probably hollowing it out and repacking it to pack your weed in it so you think you're fooling the cops with the smell or you just like that extra mango or banana flavor. Again, it's called a blunt. Some of the new things that are going on with cannabis is just like any other thing. Like we used to have oranges, now we only have navel oranges by and large. The same things are happening with cannabis. That's becoming legal. People are figuring out better ways to make it stronger. We all know about hash, but there's a new thing about cannabis oil, flakka, and things like that where they're actually using butane oil to soak it through the cannabis leaves in a pipe, and what comes out of it is just pure, straight up 90% THC, which is the element that makes cannabis cannabis, psychoactive, that high. That little buttery looking stuff there, and that what looks like rock candy down there, stuff that's 90% THC. Mind altering on a level where people are like, the police are like, we don't know what's wrong with this guy. It's not PCP, it's something completely different. Candy people are making out of it. Obviously, we all know the brownies and the hash brownies and all that, the cookies. You see a pipe like that, that's the most common way most young people consume cannabis, with their own bowl. Oh, Dad, it's, I used to smoke tobacco, or Mom, that's not what you think it is, or it's just a little bit. Oh, how much could that be? It's only a little tiny amount that he's smoking in there. Well, it's indicative of regular consumption. That ticket itself is a higher ticket than the actual cannabis possession ticket right now. In DuPage County, that's $850 if you get caught with that. Weed, that's like $100 for court costs and everything else. So understand where we're at with a lot of this. There's a grinder. If you find one of those on your kids, that means they're getting enough weed, those big buds that they want to grind it down in that metallic cylinder to make it packable or smokable a whole lot easier. Because people, maybe some people do, but they usually don't take those big buds and just smoke the end of them. They grind it up and use it from there. Again, there's a scale. If you see a scale, again, either your kid's consuming enough cannabis that he's selling it, or she's selling it, or they're tired of getting ripped off by whoever's selling it to them, so they weigh the stuff out so they know they're not getting shorted. Because contrary to popular belief, drug dealers are bad people. They might want to rip off their customers. And then there's the old standby, everybody knows that one, the big old hookah that everybody hits with the nasty bong water and everything else in it. There's nothing worse than doing a search warrant and spilling that on your pants when you're searching a house, and that's what you smell like for the rest of the day, and all your buddies are laughing at you. And you can't go around any of the canines because they'll rip your leg off. But that's happened. Again, the next biggest thing that we see in the pipeline, folks, no doubt, straight up, if you want to talk about this as a war, the war is that old line, I've seen the enemy and it is us. That applies to the war on drugs. It's not because there's a lot of good people that didn't want to end it. It's not because there's that many people not dying from it. But the bottom line is this is the next big thing that we're all going to be scratching our heads about. This is the biggest gateway that's presented to us in a lot of ways by the medical community, moving people on to smoking or consuming heroin. The prescription drug medication, this is an epidemic. You get prescribed prescription medication on a crazy level in America right now. I'm not knocking it for people that really need it, but it used to be when you got hurt and you were a kid, you went there and the doctor said put ice on it and leave it up and we'll go from there, and maybe some aspirin. And then it moved into Tylenol 3. Now you're getting Oxycontin level drugs that have just been approved by the FDA for 11-year-olds. Oxycontin, does anyone want to tell me what that is? It's a synthetic form of heroin, basically. I mean, it's the same one molecule off here or there or that. Again, this is coming to us. A lot of soldiers that are coming back with those horrific wounds from the war are being prescribed those kind of drugs. They're dealing well with the actual maiming, but then they're becoming addicts because of the drugs they've been given to deal with it. Again, an opioid is the psychoactive chemical that resembles morphine or other opiates in its pharmacological effects. Plain and simple is what it is. And that's where a lot of people go to that. It's most commonly found in your own medicine cabinet. And then, obviously, pill bottles, for the longest time in the law enforcement profession, people would look at it and go, yeah, okay, that's legit. I mean, it's your name, it's your pill. I guess that's what you're supposed to be taking. And right under our own nose, all of these things were happening. Again, as opioid sales go up over the last decade and a half, so did all the treatment admissions as well as the deaths. It only made sense. This stuff is like, hey, ladies, you deal with pain much better than men do. I'm going to give that hat tip to you there. For some of the things that you've been designed to do, men would commit suicide if we knew we had to do that. But the bottom line is my own example is my wife got these drugs when we had our sons, and those drugs sat sitting there. The same thing's happening across America. She didn't completely consume all those drugs, so those things sat there. And those things sit there like a loaded gun in your house. Somebody comes along and takes that stuff. That's a gateway drug for them. They're not prescribed that. They don't know how to deal with it. And then they take it and use it. Again, it doesn't matter. The most common cause of death for you in 2009 and prior was a vehicle crash. It makes sense, doesn't it, for modern law-abiding citizens? You drive a car, people don't pay attention. It's the most common thing a law-abiding American could deal with. Now, drug overdoses from 2010 on have claimed more lives than anything else. And again, on the realm of war, if we saw this many people dying every day, like Tim said, 120 people, 10,000 people a year dying of drug overdoses, correlate that to a war, we'd be launching nukes at that enemy. We wouldn't stand for it as a citizenry. We would demand something different would be happening. But the problem, again, the problem is in the mirror. We got to stop relying so much on this to escape and deal with it, and not recognize the stigma that goes with addiction and get rid of it. Again, Prince or Pauper that we talked about, very talented people with access to probably some of the best health care in the United States of America, maybe in the world. And that's probably one of the reasons they died of it, because they had easy access to it. They didn't have to go to the street corner to buy it. They could just get it from a doctor that was willing to prescribe that to them. Well, they've done a lot in the medical community to address that, but it doesn't really matter. Heath Ledger's never going to be the Joker again. Nobody's ever going to be the Joker again, because Heath Ledger changed that role. I'm totally into the Batman movies, by the way, and I'm really bummed about that. But there's a vastly talented individual that lost his life like a junkie in the street that we would go, ugh, stay away from him. Again, those are things to think about. There's a young man in our town that died of an opioid overdose. It's called pulmonary edema. His friends knew he was out at 2 o'clock in the morning. The mom even let him in, didn't question it. Oh, you can go downstairs and sleep, that's fine. No, do your parents know where you are? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? Oh, go ahead and go down, sleep downstairs, Jimmy. Jimmy, the next morning, nobody checks on him. Mom finds him in that condition. He overdosed and he drowned in this white pussy fluid that builds up in your lungs because your body starts to shut down, and that is where time stopped for Jim. Again, that's a mythical name that I'm giving it to him, but that's what happens to you when you overdose on an opioid or an opioid. You drown in your own, for lack of a better term, pus. because the body just builds up that fluid and that's how you go. Do you want to find your kid in that state? The natural progression is, folks, we die before our children. If your child dies before you, try filling that hole. Try filling that hole. That wake that's created by that. Police officers have to deal with firefighters standing over the individual, the friends, everyone else. Think about that. Think about that. In battle, parents can't stand the fact that they've lost a child in battle, going and defending our nation and our safety. This is lost. It's tragedy that we can largely avoid and deal with. Again, the controversy about this is, again, I'm not here to cast aspersions on the pharmaceutical industry, but there's a lot of controversy that surrounds us and swells around it. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't stand up here and at times think, man, what are we doing about this? When the tobacco industry was realized they were killing a lot of people, what did we do to the tobacco industry? We regulated the hell out of them. We taxed the heck out of them. Did it stop people from smoking? No, it didn't, but it at least helped us pay for some of the things that went through. When the auto industry was, millions of people were dying every year in car crashes, what did we do? Everything. Yeah, it was for the people first. You get backup cameras in your cars and all these really safety. But now those things are standard. You go buy a Honda Civic or a Chevy Volt, you get a backup camera in it because we killed more people doing that than anything else. Prescription medication? The horse is out of the barn. We got to bring that thing back in. To be honest with you, we got to be very realistic about it. And the people that are going to do it, honestly, and I'm not putting this at your feet, ladies, women pay attention to medical stuff way more than guys do. I've got a really great benefits plan. I'm going to tell you, my wife tells me that all the time. I wouldn't know any better if I didn't, if I wasn't married. I'd be like, what do I, okay, I don't go to the doctor. He's kind of, I got to wait there and then I got to take my clothes off. It's really weird. I'm not into that. And I'll just deal with it. But the bottom line is we're getting a lot of this from the medical industry. People are being prescribed this. People that have been exposed to it in the nursing field are becoming addicts because they're around such powerful medication. Again, how do you get them? You very rarely get it from a drug dealer. Very rarely. Friends sling it to each other in school, still not the biggest percentage. The next thing is you just took it from a relative without even asking. You went in their medicine cabinet and, oh my God, you got a rash, and oh my God, look at these opioids I can take. Another source, like somebody says, like my brother's pants. These aren't my pants, they're my brother's pants. Again, bought from a relative or friend. You bought it from a relative or friend. Again, prescribed by a doctor. You would think that would be the biggest way that we get prescription medication in our lives. Not true. The best way we get it is we get it for free from a friend or a relative that helped lead us down the path. If you were to go get a firearm and want to carry a concealed carry right now, you'd have to go to school for quite some time. If you want a drug that can kind of make you an addict within no time, you can go to your friends and say, hey man, you got any Axes? Can you hook me up because I'm in total pain with my back? And they're like, yeah. Or the friend will give it to you and say it's something else, and it's another drug that's much worse. That's a big issue, folks, and that's something that we need to understand. We all have an obligation here. This isn't a war that's just fought by addicts and fought by cops. It needs to be fought by everyone. Because if we can mobilize in the past as Americans, we can mobilize again to help each other out. First things first, we've got to abandon this stigma of addiction. Cops need to abandon it, and so does families that don't want anybody to think anything else. Because at the rates that people are dying, every single one of us are going to be able to sit in a room and say, look to your left, look to your right. You know somebody that's either died or is dealing with addiction. And if you're too cool and you think you're better than that person next to you, that's the issue. Every one of us in here, some way, shape, or form, is going to know somebody that loses their life, gets locked up, or loses a job, something else, facing addiction, the way that these numbers are going right now, and we can turn that tide. We did it with malaria. We did it with all sorts of other diseases that our nation faced that took our kids very young, back before we had any of the resources that we do. It can be done. Again, commonly abused drugs, I'm not going to read those to you. Most common street value for drugs are 10 to 20 bucks, depending upon what they are. The charge for prescription drug abuse is unlawful acquisition, because you can normally acquire those drugs in a legal manner through a doctor or prescription, but the bottom line is when you have them and you shouldn't, it's unlawful acquisition, which is still a class 4 felony. Cops aren't looking to make a case or make their name on getting class 4 felons all the time. Most cops that do drug work want to get the next higher guy up. The problem with heroin is, when we get to that point, and we'll talk about that a little bit, is it just takes no prisoners. When you're in the room and you're the cop and you're the guy with the bad guy with the gun and all yelling at people and stuff like that, that guy that's the heroin addict, he doesn't care about any of that. He's like, you think I'm scared of you? You know who's standing over your shoulder? The Grim Reaper. I'm not afraid of you. You got to follow the Constitution. The Grim Reaper, he don't care. And he's just going like this at you right over your shoulder. So they'll tell me whatever I want to know. They're the best people to deal with as a cop. Easiest confessions. They give it right up. They tell you what they want to do. Because why do they tell you? because they just want to get out and get another hit as soon as they possibly can. They don't care. They spend 3 days in county jail. They get their bond hearing. Their parents bond them out. We've watched them go from DuPage County jail, jump in a car with a friend, drive down to the west side, and come back and buy more heroin. You think they care what we're doing to them? All they care about is we take away their means of doing it. And then the parents get mad at us about that because that's a car they're paying for and everything else. All right. I got the 5-minute buzz, Tim, so I'm moving here. I'm still going. The DEA, the largest growth in the DEA over the last decade has been in diversion, which means that those are folks that are basically examining or looking at what's happening in the prescription medication. The guys that are kicking down doors with the beards and the fake tattoos and all that other stuff, these are guys in suits just dealing with doctors that are getting this to the people in the wrong way, or they're being diverted in other ways. Again, identification research. If you want to know what your kids are taking, that pill identification research, there's an app for it. Just put it in your phone. You want to know what it looks like? You can put it in what color, shape, size, whatever. You can find out what it is. You can go to your kids and go, this is a controlled substance, and why do you have it? Because I didn't take you to the doctor to get this. Where did you get this? Oh, I got it from my friend. It helps me out with this. Baloney. You know what you're dealing with. Again, here's a video. I'm going to skip that right now because I got to keep moving here for you. Heroin abuse. Heroin is obviously comes from the poppy plant. It's most commonly grown in Mexico now. That's where we're getting our largest amounts. They've stopped growing weed on a large scale for the cartels, and now they realize the money's here in heroin because the problems we're facing north of the border, bottom line is it's being grown and harvested there. Used to be a lot of it was coming from the Middle East and Afghanistan because of the poppy fields out there. Now it's largely coming to us from Mexico. Again, the euphoric rush you get from it is like every heroin addict will tell you. They say, where have you been my whole life? They've taken other drugs, they hit heroin, they're like, holy cow, this is who I'm going to marry, and this is who I'm going to die with. That's what we say when we meet somebody that's good for us. That's what heroin does to those guys. Again, it's a Schedule I controlled substance. It's pure white powder is what we see with a bitter taste. Again, most illicit heroin is sold white or brownish color. We don't see a lot of the black tar stuff. Mostly in this area from the west side is coming from there. Again, heroin packaging. Today it's 10 times stronger than it was back in the 60s and 70s. You see those foil packets, that's an individual blow, hit, or bag that somebody's talking with you about. You hear those terms or see those texts. A hit is about $10, a tenth of a gram. A jab is about 12 to 13, maybe 15, depending upon how good of a customer you are, how desperate they are to get people out. Open air markets are on the west side of Chicago all over the place. We used to ride down there. We're the only middle-aged white men riding around following kids from the suburbs. The bad guys knew who us were. They were just dealing it anyway. They didn't care. They didn't care because they know that that's what's going on. And again, you see that stuff. In the state of Illinois, you can have up to 21 needles in your possession and not be charged with possession of drug paraphernalia because we made that legal now. It's not drug paraphernalia because of the spread of HIV/AIDS. We were trying to curtail that so people weren't sharing dirty needles. If you're a heroin addict, do you care about a dirty needle? Do you care about who you're sharing with? No. It didn't really solve any of that. HIV/AIDS was just a little bit, we're smarter about it, again, which proves that Americans, when they mobilize and do the right things, they can reduce bad numbers. Again, you see those things, a spoon, a cook kit, those baggies. It's a little too late. The other thing you'll see is probably a shoelace or something associated with that for the tie-off. Again, the physiological effect is metabolized into morphine, binds with opioid receptors in the brain. Again, short-term effects are a single dose, can disappear in a few hours. The long term, after injection, you feel this like warmth that runs over your body. And then they start to nod and get out. Some people can come out of the nod pretty good, and some people can't. Imagine driving a vehicle on I-88 doing about 70 miles an hour with a needle in your arm. We've actually taken people off in Naperville doing that. Again, mental function becomes clouded, depression of the central nervous system. Other effects of heroin may have users include respiratory depression, constricted pupils, and nausea, which is common. Dope sick, like Tim talked about. Effects of heroin overdose include slow and shallow breathing, hypotension, muscle spasms, convulsion, coma, and possible death. What happens is the brain stops communicating normally. The body says, hey, we need more oxygen because we're not breathing enough, but the opioid receptors are blocking all of that, or being blocked, and you stop breathing. And that's how you asphyxiate. That's why you're blue when they find you. And hopefully they can save you. How are you exposed to it? The cartels and the street gangs have formed this unholy alliance. What I used to tell people from Naperville, if you think this is only about your white kids dying, all those kids that died, the 38 that are shot, a large percentage of that in the city had to do with gang violence that has to do with drug turf. So our money fuels some of that violence, and we're not alone in this. Again, it's Chicago, form your own state down there, Cook County, do whatever you want. The bottom line is that our money is fueling a lot of that violence. It's called the Heroin Highway, 55, 88, any of those ones in and out of there. Most heroin retail sales, like I said, are between the vice lords and the gangster disciples and the suspected heroin users. Heroin users like to work together. They don't do it alone. And we talked about putting dealers in jail. I agree with that wholeheartedly, but understand that no one does this alone. And ask anybody that's dealt with it, people will tell you, my kid went down and would sling it to his friends just so they'd help him pay for it. Hey, I'll get you some. If you come back and give a packet to your friend because he gave you gas money, guess what you are? You're a drug dealer. And that's how the eyes of the courts look at that. So your kid could be a drug dealer simply because they're trying to support a habit. Those are some numbers that Senator Kirk put out within the last year. That's how many folks died. DuPage County led the way outside of Cook. Again, total deaths in 1 year in 2012, 390. If that many people died in the Gulf Wars, any one of the wars at that time, we'd be losing our minds. That many people die every day of drug overdoses or every year. That's the case. That's what we deal with. Again, overdose, immunity, prosecution from the law. Last thing I'm going to cover with you here. If you are, again, afraid to get help, afraid to call the police, afraid to call the fire department, if you have under 3 grams of a controlled substance and you are in this, taking a significant step in getting some help, like calling the police or the fire department, you cannot be arrested for having that in your possession. All we can do is confiscate it and later destroy it. You go to get help, you're going to get help. So anybody that tells you I was afraid to call the cops because what I had, you had more than 3 grams of heroin. Is 3 grams of heroin a lot of heroin for a heroin user? Anybody that's done it? I mean, again, somebody could burn that up pretty quickly, but more than 3 grams, you got a real issue on your hand as a parent. Again, same thing in good faith. If anybody that reports it, they cannot be, and if anybody's doing it for themselves, it's the same deal. Again, Narcan, we're using that quite a bit. Not the only answer, because eventually a first responder is not going to be there for you. Not going to be there for you. The parent's not going to be there for you, because like Tim said, you can't watch your kids 24 hours a day. Narcan helps. Oh, he's the Narcan guy tonight, like the DD, the designated driver. How many times have you guys gone out and the DD didn't be the DD? They started out as the DD, but they didn't end up as the DD, and everybody's getting in the car and oh boys, oh, well, you had the duty, so you take the fall. That doesn't really help. Again, Narcan's really good. Police officers are really embracing it because we've had a couple saves in Naperville with it so far and throughout this area. Again, that's the name of it, and again, it can reverse the effects of heroin, OxyContin, and other painkillers. And this is what it ends up really looking like. That's where they find you, and that's where you end up. You end up on a table, for lack of a better term, like a turkey. The coroner has to go through and take your stuff out, and then he puts it back in a bag when he figures out what the real deal is, and he gives it back to your mom. And then that's it. Time stands still right there. Where you're at can never be undone from there. That hole remains that hole for the rest of your life. And there were all sorts of signs for this young man and then all these other folks, these faces of folks that I, at times, wish I didn't know. The media all covers it. Things we talk about it. You go to prison, you still don't see the signs. That's where you end up. That's how we find you. Your parents find you, and then a bunch of guys in blue polyester have to stand around you and decide you had the moment of death, call the hospital and everything else. But that room is that room that way in that house for the rest of that life, and that young man is here no more. So again, it all ends up with good people that probably could have done a whole lot more for us if we just paid attention to this a little bit more. I got tired of it. Everybody says they got a moment. I remember just doing a search warrant on a guy that was slinging heroin, and I looked up when I was searching his room, and I saw a picture of a little kid, like wearing a superhero costume. And I thought of my own kids, and I thought, I live only miles from where this is at. This kid was a scout like my kids were, everything else, and this is where he's at. He ended up killing people because he was slinging drugs, and I thought, I gotta do more, man. I can't just keep doing this, processing this like some administrative bureaucrat. I've gotta do more. I've gotta educate people to this, because I pray to the gods every night of drugs and say, don't take one of mine. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. I'm trying to help. Don't take one of mine, and I still live with it. It's affected my family, my wife's family, all of my friends' families. People don't want to acknowledge it. We just kind of tuck it off. Think about what you're doing here, folks. You got to get involved and you got to get engaged. We've done it before as Americans. We can do it again. You got to listen to the people that have the credibility in this field, like Tim, that do this research and everything else. With that, I'll turn it over to Rich. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
I'm tired of seeing kids die. And it's going to start with all of you. You see, I have something to tell you. All of you here. You may not like it. Hell, you may want to complain to my chief, but I don't care because I got 25 years and I know how much you can do to me. I'm tenured. But you need to hear it. All of you here today are responsible for your children. I'm sorry if I upset you just now. I'm sorry if you want to go run and complain to my chief that I said something that was really not right. But you see, you're not only responsible for your children, for their food, clothing, and shelter, you're also responsible for them in their online lives too. For you to sit there and say, "Sweetheart, what are you doing on that phone?" "Nothing, Mom, it's mine." There is no such thing as privacy for children. Do we understand each other? There is no such thing as privacy for children. Until they're 18, you are responsible for them. What goes on in their technology is their world. We are going to cover today some of the warning signs, and I'm going to give you the solution to watching your kids so they don't become involved in drugs. A kid doesn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do heroin today. As you heard Sean, as you heard Tim, it's progressive. Start with alcohol, then weed, then maybe a little bit of X. Maybe I heard a new term this weekend when I was investigating a dead 18-year-old from a heroin overdose. We're going to pick up some wax. Hash oil. And as I'm going through all these different drugs, where do you think they're all talking about it? On their cell phones. So you see, if you are in your kids' technology, you will know exactly what they're doing. Not say, "I can't look at that. That's private." Private. Or how about the moms that say, "Oh, we have the best relationship. She tells me everything. We're best friends." All right, moms, I'm going to ask you this. When you were that age, did you tell your mom everything? Oh, hell no, you didn't. So what makes you think your darling daughters, and sons for all that matter, tell you everything? They don't. They only tell you enough so you think that you're their best friend. And you think that they tell you everything, but they don't. So let's look at some warning signs. Loss of interest in family activities. The drug is their new friend. Disrespect for family rules. Withdrawn from their responsibilities. Verbally and physically abusive. Sudden increase or decrease in appetite. Disappearance of valuable items or money. Every heroin addict family that I've ever dealt with have gone through that. Not coming home on time, not telling you where they are or where they're going, constant excuses for their behavior, spending a lot of time in their rooms, lies about activities, finding the following cigarette rolling papers, pipes, roach clips, small glass vials, plastic baggies, remnants of drugs. Sean tells a story, but we limited him to his time. He tells a story about a heroin. We went to an OD where he was investigating, and the girl was dead. She was like 19 years old. And the mom and dad said, well, how would we have known? Sean opens up her car door and sees a bunch of silver packets all over the floor. You know what the parent said? She loved to chew gum. Chew gum? Combined with her nodding all the time when she's home? You don't check that out? Again, you can't put your head in the sand with this. Look at this video. This kid's got his phone taken away. 15-year-old. All right, go in the closet. All right. Again, why are our children acting like that from taking a phone away? It is their identity. It's how they communicate. It's who they are. It's their everything. How many parents have punished their kids by taking their phone away? Raise your hand. Yeah, right? That has an astounding effect on our children. But why? Because their life is in there. And don't you think you need to be in that life? Like, I love it when moms or dads and they say, I say, well, does she have a diary? Oh, yeah, we can't look at it. It's private. There is no such thing. Wouldn't you want to know if she was dealing drugs, having sex with a teacher, going to the corner, sneaking out, drinking, doing burglaries or whatever? As a parent, don't you think you should know that? Yes, you should. Because you are responsible for your child. Now, I'm going to give you some solutions to be in your child's life. I'm going to teach you about drug testing, the conversations you need to have with your children, and all of the things that go with that. I'm going to give you, in your gift bags, you are going to get a drug test kit, free. You are going to get free software to put in your kids' devices and to the computers, and you're going to know exactly what they are doing. These are the companies that we deal with. My Mobile Watchdog, you're going to get that for free for 6 months. Teen Safe, you're going to get it free for a week or two. And this Web Watcher is for a computer. I'm going to show you how they work. Now, let's start off. How do I ask my teen to take a drug test? From the time your child reaches junior high school, let your teens know that you love them, you care about them, and you never ever want them to go down to the wrong path. It's not that you don't trust them, you don't trust the influence around them. So many parents simply haven't thought to drug test their kids at home, even though testing is a very effective means of helping to prevent the teen drug use. Again, like I said before, we did a program in Kane County for the sheriff. Dare to know. I keep this text with me everywhere I go because I love to read it. Hi, Rich. My name is Abby. What you said at the forum last week really helped me, and I wanted to say thank you very much for what you said. Many of my friends smoke weed, and I never know how to properly turn them down without feeling judged and mistreated and cyberbullied. I've been asked countless times since the forum, at school and at a party, to smoke weed and try alcohol with them, and I've been able to say that I get drug tested weekly now. I really appreciate you offering the idea of saying that. I definitely have gotten out of a few sticky situations when it came to drugs, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. My name's Abby, and I'm 14. So the ability for even you having these drug test kits, because moms, God has given you a talent. It's called the sixth sense, right? Where you're making dinner, your kid comes home through the garage in that motorhome, and you look at him and you're like, whoa, something happens. Right? By the way they come in, by the way they put their book bag down, by the way they storm up the stairs, by the way they throw themselves on the couch, you've known those children since they were in your room or since you raised them. You know when something is wrong. Am I right? God has given you that talent. And I am here to tell you, investigate, investigate, investigate until you get to an answer that is probable. That guy sitting next to you in the lazy boy chair, yeah, God skipped him. He don't have that. He don't have that sixth sense. Moms do. You see, when you have that maternal instinct of something's going wrong, don't let everything else outside your family or your status or the stigma to curtail you to knowing what you need to do. The poor mom I dealt with last Saturday, seeing her beautiful 18-year-old girl dead on the floor. Yeah, I know I was seeing the straws on the floor, but I didn't know, I just didn't think she would be involved in heroin. Well, what else is there? If you see something, say something. We can help you. So when we're talking about drug testing, it's like truth serum. And Tim will tell you, Tim sells these and gives these away all the time, these drug test kits. And he'll tell you that, and they've told me before, because when we give them out for station adjustment, what happens is, you tell your kid, when parents get this drug test kit and they bring it home and they say, you know what, I've got a feeling. I want you to pee in a cup and take the drug test. Why, Mom? Don't you trust me? I don't trust other people, but right now, no, I don't trust you. Pee in the cup. All right, Mom. Well, let me tell you why it's going to be positive. 100% of the time, when we give a parent, a mom, with that drug test that she has a feeling and she instituted this, 100% of the time it was truth serum and they told her why they were going to be positive. 100% of the time, ladies and gentlemen. It is amazing when you get that feeling what God is telling you to do with your children. And you see, a lot of times, what moms and dads make a mistake in, they try to get down to their kids' level. And they say, when I was a kid, it was different then when we drank and smoked. You never, ever, never tell your kids what you did when you were their age. Never. Because it will definitely come back to haunt you. Because when they get caught for the same activity that you just described that you did, they're going to throw it in your face and say, well, you did and you turned out okay. What are you yelling at me for? Detective, do you want me to lie to my kids? Yeah, I do. They don't need to know what you did when you were kids. Because if you tell them what you did, you are certifying that behavior because you turned out okay. My kids think I should have been a priest. I ain't telling them nothing. So, will I violate my trust though when I go to drug test my kid? Most good parents want to be careful and responsible as possible. Whether you're trying to prevent drug use, discover possible drug use, stop current use, or just be reassured that it's not happening, but knowing the truth from the get-go is the first process. And you're going to learn that by my friend Kyle. Drug testing is only helpful when it's combined with great communication and effective discipline. Drug testing alone will not solve anything. Just because, I want you to be in a cup. Okay, now it's positive, now what are you going to do? Oh crap, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? No. If you're going to drug test your kid and you have this feeling, you need to be able to have something in place, ready to go, where there's a social worker at the school, you call a Tim Ryan, you call a family friend who knows about addiction, you have consequences ready, that if they test, this is what you're going to do. It's not just pee in a cup. No, you have to have some type of safety plan. That, oh my God, if it's positive, what the hell am I going to do? It's going to be, you're positive, tomorrow we're going to go see the doctor, or we're going to go see the psychiatrist, or we're going to go see the social worker, and then I'm going to get you into treatment. Have a plan. What if my teen refuses to take the test though? You don't trust me? I'm not doing it. I'm not peeing. Guess what? Positive test. Positive. You're going to violate my privacy? No, no such thing. You're living in my house. I pay for everything because you own nothing. When I teach in the schools, I have the kids. Hey kids, look down at the shoes you're wearing. Yeah, you don't own those. Your parents bought them for you and own everything that you have. All that grass cutting you did over the summer, guess what? You bought that iPad? Or you bought that gaming console? Guess what? You don't own it. Your parents own it and allow you to have it. And can take it at any time. Okay? So long as we know the ground rules here. Parents need to parent. Your kids do not need any more friends in their lives. They need someone to go to be their confidant and to help them when they're in trouble. Well, when this starts happening, they are in trouble. If they refuse to take tests, it's a positive test. Then it is a positive test, proceed with your discipline. But what if my teen takes the test and it's negative? Everybody's got a story. I got a story. My boys play soccer, and they're very, very good at it. Spend a lot of time training, traveling all over the United States, blah, blah, blah. Went to Spain. When my son was a sophomore, my older son, I have a rule in my house. When a boy comes to my house, any of your friends, they have to greet me, tell me their name, shake my hand, and tell me where you're from. If you don't do that, you're not coming to my house. Or you can turn your ass around and there's the door. So, it was after homecoming bonfire, and the kid did smell like smoke. I'm nodding off on my chair, and my son comes in and he goes, there's a line of boys, and the girls, I don't mess with them because I don't want to be that creepy dad, and I let my wife take care of that. So she makes the pizza and the popcorn, and she gets all that ready and makes the girls help them. Then she interrogates them while they're helping them and all that other stuff. So we all have our roles. And so I'm nodding off, and Anthony comes to me and goes, Dad, this is Wojtek, and this is the... I said, what are you introducing me to friends I already know for? Well, yeah. Go. And so I talked to a couple boys that I didn't know, and I've got a boy cave in my basement. So there's, they can play FIFA, ping pong, pool tables, whatever they want to do. So everybody's downstairs. My son comes up, and he puts an empty bowl of popcorn right next to my chair. And I'm like, wake up. I said, what are you doing? He goes, we're done with it. I said, put it in the sink. What are you leaving here for? He's acting you're strange. I go up to my wife. I was like, Anit. I'm like, he's not acting right. And my wife from Sicily, she goes, bring him to me. So I said, Aunt, your mom wants you. So there's like 8 kids in my basement. So Anthony goes upstairs, talks to my wife, and all of a sudden, she's talking Italian to him, and my wife's like, why are you acting so stupid? Rich, get up here. She goes, drug test him. He's like, what? Drug test. All right. So I go get a drug test. Let's pee in the cup, buddy. He goes, for what? I said, because you're acting like an idiot. And I want to know what's going on. Your eyes are bloodshot and glass. I said, we were at bonfire. I said, I don't care. I want to know. Fine, give me it. So he snatches it out of my hand, pees in a cup. I said, now go downstairs. What do you think he did when he went downstairs? Can you believe my dad just drug tested me? 1 leaves, 2 leave, 3 leave. See you later, Mr. Wostocki. My wife was sweating it because it takes 5 minutes. I'm like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. What are you gonna do? I don't know. Well, I can call this guy, and I can call this guy, and we'll take him to the hospital, and we'll get him treated, and he's gonna have to do this. He's gonna have to. She goes, okay, let's just wait. Turned out to be negative. Call him back up. All his friends left. I said, I hugged him. I said, I love you. Thank you for taking this test. But what the hell is wrong with you tonight? Well, Dad, there's this new girl downstairs, and I'm like, whether it's drugs or women, it's gotta be one of them. But if they test negative, it's a free day for your kid. Your teen is gonna go to the mall, on you. Yes, here's the credit card. Their favorite restaurant, on you. This is for being a fantastic child. Thank you for taking that test. When I was, and Tim and I were developing all this Dare to Know stuff, my son, who had a free ride in college for soccer, and he's going to be a fireman. He's going to paramedic school in January. And he sat down with us and says, you know what, Dad? I could have smoked a lot of weed when I went to high school parties. And I didn't even have to say anything. Because all the kids that were there that night all knew that you drug tested me. I didn't have to say a word. They knew they would never offer it to me. They knew I would kick their ass and find them and hunt them down and do whatever I needed to do with them if they did force my kid to do that. But of course, our kids are never forced to do that. They could be peer pressure to do that. But I'm in my kids' life. I'm in their technology. Now here's the MedToxin. Basically what happens is it tests for 7 different types of drugs all in one shot. It's opposite of a pregnancy test. So if there's no line, that means it's positive. If their lines show up, it's negative. Basically, they pee in a cup, put the top up, turn it on its side, within 5 minutes you're gonna know exactly what drugs your kids are doing. This is an effective tool, ladies and gentlemen. And it gives your kids a big stick to carry. You say, my parents drug test me, I can't. How many of your kids are athletes? Raise your hand. Okay? And, well, I signed the athletic code. I can't do that. Yeah, so did everybody at this party. Take a hit. They don't care about that. But they care about if my parents drug test me, and they're going to say, oh, sucks to be you. And you know your kids are cared for. So that's what it looks like. Again, if there is not a line, it means it's positive. So here's some of the drugs that it tests for. I won't get into all that. So we're talking about their social networks and their cell phones, okay? Who they hang out with. Where are they going? Who are they dating? What parties are they going to? Just before I left, I don't know if you saw some of the pictures that I have on my image drive, but you see like 100 kids in front of my house at homecoming. You know, they love coming to my house. They know what I do, but they love coming to my house taking pictures. But like today, there's this other girl that was taking pictures, and I get an alert on my son's phone, because I have software on my son's phone. When somebody calls him that I don't know and I don't recognize, it sends me that duplicate text message. Even if he deletes it, I get it. So this girl who was having this pictures at her house, and we were having pictures at our house, she's like, and she's a demon child, and I said, I'm getting ready to come here, and I was like, Dominic, this is from Allie, Dominic, can we have pictures at your house? And I texted him, I said, oh, hell no. I said, she ain't going to my house. He goes, nice, Dad. So, again, I'm going to show you how this technology works, but I want to give you a red flag right now. I want all you parents to take out your cell phones right now. Take out your cell phones. You can put your flip phone away. So, I want you to go to your App Store or your Google Play right now, if you have an Android, your App Store or your Google Play, and I want you to type in hide my pictures or hide my video. You're going to see all of these apps that are designed to allow your children to hide pictures and videos from you so you can't see them. This is what I mean about going through their phone. You're going to your App Store or your Google Play. So you're going to type in the search queue, hide my pictures, hide my videos, and you're going to see that there are 5 or 6 different companies that allow your children to hide things in their phone so you can't see it. I suggest you take screenshots of those, and when you go through your kid's phone, if it looks like a calculator or it looks like a safe, you press it, and if another thing comes up where you have to type in a different code, they're hiding something from you. It's hidden in there. So, let's talk about some of this software. First, I want to show you how Mobile Watchdog works. Now, Mobile Watchdog is strictly for Android phones. So I'm going to log in here. Hopefully my son is being appropriate today, because you're going to see what's on his phone right now. I'm glad my wife left early. All right, so here's this phone. You can put up to 4 phones on one account. And I just got off the phone with the company, My Mobile Watchdog. They're going to have a service for iPhone as well, but as of today, within 2 weeks, they're going to have that. But for right now, for Androids, okay? Now, here is his activity log. And these are every text that he's having on his phone right now. Okay? So I know he went to Chencho's. Okay, honey, have fun, blah, blah, blah. So here we go. See these alerts right here? These people, I don't know, so it sends them to my phone. I know exactly what he's doing. So if somebody calls him that I don't know, and I need to be able to know who this person is. So I wanted to show you. So if there's a picture or video, you can click on that, and sure enough, that picture or video will show up here, and you can see everything. So if I wanted to see what conversations that he's having, let's see. Let me pick on somebody here. All right, I'll pick on mom. So say this was somebody else, but he's talking to her all day. So I wanted to create a report. When I ask it to create a report, I'll go most recent last, and I can go back for about a year. I can go back as long as I want, as long as he had the phone. I'm going to have it generate a report. So what's going to happen, it's going to carve out every conversation he had with any one of his friends. And I'm going to be able to read it like chat. I shouldn't have went so long because there's going to be so much text. And you can read it like chat. Any pictures that were sent, you can see exactly what they're talking about. I'll move on because I'm running out of time. So in here, his contacts. Like there's this kid named Coot, and I know he drinks and does drugs, and because I've seen it for myself, as he's stumbling around the Walmart at 2 in the morning. And his name is Coot. So whenever Coot tries to call my son from his home or from his phone, I get a text. If he texts him, I get a copy of that text. If he calls him and says that Coot called your son right now, I call my son, I'm like, what do you want? Come on, Dad, really? Yeah, what did he want? He goes, he's in my class, he wanted to know about the homework. I said, okay, is that all he wanted? Yeah, okay, good job, buddy. He has to know that I know, that I'm in that phone knowing who he's talking to and, but that's private. Oh, hell no, it's not private. If my son's going to hang out with that kid because he's the popular kid and get involved in that stuff, whose fault is that? And I could have stopped it. I'm going to stop it. I don't care. Let's go to websites. Any website he goes to, it's going to list him here. And I get alerted to every website that I haven't approved. Applications. Like when my older son would come home from college, and he would complain, be in the car going to dinner, and he'd complain about a class. Of course, my little guy would play the baby crying detector, like, wah, 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 while we're having this conversation. I got sick of it, so I went in and I blocked it. He goes, Dad, my baby crying detector don't work anymore. I said, I don't know, maybe they went out of business. Okay. Time block. So what you can do is here, and my son cannot use his phone from 12 o'clock to 6 in the morning. Doesn't work at all. No games, no text, no nothing. I shut it off. Well, what about 911? Yeah, sure, I manage an emergency. The only person he can call or text is 911, Mom, Dad, home, Nana, no, Anthony, or Auntie Barb, my sister. Those are the only people he can text or call. No games, no nothing. Parents, do not allow your children to charge their devices in their rooms at night. There is so much video chatting going on with a website called Kik and Uvu and Omegle. When I teach in this school right here, more than half of the kids are on Uvu, which is a video chat site that after 11 o'clock, nothing good happens, believe me. Now, you don't go, just like what happened just right now. I saw that what you did. I saw what you did. You don't go to your kid and say, do you have Uvu? What are they going to say? Oh, no, Mom, I don't do that. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to say no. But when you go and say, hey, I learned about this new video site. It's not Skype. It's called like something. Uvu. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Do you have that? Yeah. All right, let me see how it works. Get it off. You got to be savvy, Mom. None of this. Okay? So, going back here. If I locate him, I can locate him to see where he's at. I know if he says he's in someplace, he better be there. If I see that phone going to the west side of Chicago, we know we have a problem, right? So let me tell you a little bit about TeenSafe. TeenSafe works on iPhones. For so long, there's been nothing to monitor an iPhone. Now it's here. It does an okay job, but it doesn't do as good as a job as Mobile Watchdog does. But when you're talking about iPhones, this does iPhones and it does iPads. Now, this is my cell phone that I was testing it, and here's the dashboard. So, you see the recent messages here. It's like an overview of what's going on. But when I click here on View the Phone, I see all the messages. I get deleted texts. I get his mobile location, call logs, web history, WhatsApp, Kik text. Kik is the largest social network in the world and has the most predators in the world there. And all of our kids use it. When I go into a school, 75 to 80% of our kids have Kik. And I deal with sextortion cases, investigating kids being blackmailed to get nude photos and videos. The common denominator is Kik. And I have about 1 to 2 of those cases a month. And here you can see all the Kik texts. I don't have Kik on my phone, so I can't show that to you. So even if you want all the Instagram postings, here we go. I hope he's safe. So in his Instagram feed, I can see the stuff that's on his Instagram. I can see what he's putting up there. Please, please, please. Okay, that's good. Okay. I can see who follows him. I can see who his followers are. I see everything. Now, what I'm about to show you, the parents of the unfortunate girl that had overdosed, Mom never knew she lived a life of addiction. She thought she drank, She thought she smoked weed, had no idea she was smoking heroin or snorting heroin. So Tim is actually going to, in the eulogy at her funeral on Thursday, the parents had asked Tim and my friend Kyle to go there. All the kids that she hung out with, most of them are drug addicts and they do heroin. Kyle survived. The father has asked Kyle and Tim to go there, and after the eulogy, he knows that there's going to be addicted teens there. And he has asked Tim to stand up. Any one of you who are dealing with this addiction, do not end up like my daughter. Go to this man. Go to him and get the help you need so you don't end up like my daughter. So going through Alana's beautiful girl. Girl could have been a model. It's not your heroin addict looking girl. This is all on her social networks. With a TeenSafe mobile watchdog, with WebWatcher on a computer, you will see everything. With WebWatcher, they type in what drug, cocaine, heroin, snort this, snort that. It takes a copy of the screen and sends it to you in your email. Look what this mom missed. Click on photos and video. Here are the pictures. Beautiful girl, 18 years old. See what you missed? See what you miss? Prescription drug meds, what Sean talked about. Drinking. Weed over here. See what you miss if you're not in their technology? See what you miss? You are responsible for your children, not only in their physical lives, but their online lives too. We are offering you a solution. We are offering you the ability to be in your child's life because you know what that device is. It is everything to them. If you are in their technology, if you are in their lives, you will know, and we dare you to know. I want to introduce you to a great friend of mine, Kyle the Kid.
Thank you guys for the applause. It's getting pretty late. I'm very tired. I can tell you guys are tired too, so I'm just going to do this as quick as possible. My name is Kyle. Basically, everyone calls me Kyle the Kid because I'm young and I'm a kid. I'm a 19-year-old recovering heroin addict, and most like everyone else's story, I started at a young age. The first time I picked up any kind of drug was when I was 13 years old, and that was cannabis. I didn't like who I was on the inside. I had very bad self-esteem problems, crippling depression, and introverted. I didn't like making friends, and the friends I did make were a lot like me. So the one thing we all found in common with was altering our minds to feel better about ourselves. 13, when I first tried weed, it gave me a feeling of not having to feel, and that's exactly what I was looking for a very long time. 13, I started experimenting. 14 was the first time I tried any kind of opiate, which was hydrocodone. Hydrocodone lasted me to about 15 years old, and then I was doing about 30 milligrams of Oxycontin from then. Then at 15 years old, as a freshman in high school, my friend that I was doing all this with asked if I wanted to try ketamine, which is a dissociative to animal tranquilizer used for vets and whatnot. We did school for about a week straight, kind of lived and partied at his house, had friends over, blah, blah, blah. He ended up running out. We had no more money. He lived right down the street, so I just walked home and took a shower, tried to eat some food, but none of that really worked because I started throwing up everywhere and got real sick, couldn't sleep. I didn't really know what was going on with my body or myself. So I started freaking out and crying, calling my friend, asking, what was going on. And he told me that what we're doing was not ketamine, it was heroin the whole time. And I have one of two options, which is to go to his house and go buy some, or I can just ride out the sickness. It took me about 5 minutes to get to his house, because at that point of my addiction, at 15 years old, I knew the one thing that I wanted was to keep my mind altered, and I finally found the one thing that I was searching for the whole time I was experimenting. So to 15 to 18, I managed to get myself kicked out of my own high school. I was placed in an alternative program to graduate early, basically, because no school wanted me in their school district. I graduated early, was placed into COD, College of DuPage. I woke up every morning at 5 in the morning, got my backpack, told my parents goodbye, drove to COD, called my buddy Ross, who was up at the time, who I was buying my heroin from. We'd go meet up. We'd go to Chicago off Division on the west side, and I'd sit in the COD parking student lot and just do heroin the whole time. I'd never attended one class. I just sat there in my car for 8 hours, drove home, and would tell my parents about the lies of a day that I had. They finally found out when something was obviously not going right, when I didn't attend any of my classes. I had all Fs and everything. And before that, it's not like they didn't know I had a problem. Like they knew I smoked weed and I was in and out of treatment, and things clearly were not going right. But the one thing that was different from, actually I shouldn't even say one thing that was different, one thing that was the same is that my parents had no idea that I was doing heroin, let alone opiates, let alone anything other than weed. During the 15 to 18-year-old heroin addiction that I did have, I lost six friends, 7 being on the 19th just last week, which was Alana. These are people that I grew up with, that when I was doing drugs with, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to die with these people. These are people I'm going to be buried with, or they're going to bury me. And those are the thoughts that I had, and that's where my mind was made up at the time when I was in active addiction. There was no, I'm going to get clean or get out of this or, move on with my life. It's, I'm going to do drugs until I die or find myself in the prison system. And I was perfectly okay with that, to be honest with you, because I had the one thing in my life that I thought brought me all the pleasure, all the happiness, and that was heroin. So when everyone started dying, and I kind of brought myself to my knees and kind of realized that, this is not where I want my life to be anymore. So I tracked myself into treatment for the 6th time at a local intensified outpatient. While I was doing my stint there, a counselor recommended me to go check out Tim Ryan's group, which is, that man right there. I sat in that parking lot of the church for about 30 minutes. I smoked probably half a pack of cigarettes, debating whether or not I should go in, whether or not I want to change or do anything. I made the decision to walk inside, and I'm standing here today, almost 10 months clean. So if that doesn't say much, then... And that's really that. I found a lot into myself. Recovery absolutely 100% saved my life. And to say that you can't have a great life in recovery at a young age, at an old age, at a middle age is just an absolute lie. Because once you truly want it for yourself and once you truly want to make those changes, you'll do it. It's as simple as that. You'll go through the pain, because there's nothing worse than watching more people die. But the great thing about that is that I don't have to pick up a drug over it. But the one thing that I really do love about this program is that all of these tools that Rich, Sean, Tim, that everyone talked about, is that they're offered here for free. And on top of that, they could have really stopped a lot of things in my tracks if my parents were doing the same thing. They weren't involved. They didn't really care. They kind of just let me do my own thing, and that's where it led me. If my parents drug tested me, weekly, if they were watching what was happening on my phone or where I was going, they could have nipped this in the ass, very quickly and realized what was going on. But instead, they had to, wait until, the ultimate consequence of everything that I just said to you guys. So, I'm very tired. And I think I'm going to stop talking now, so thanks, everyone.
You know, the cool thing about recovery is that 19-year-old kid's one of my best friends. He's also my full-time driver, because I don't have a driver's license still. And Kyle, you have to be at my house at 5:15 tomorrow morning to pick me up to go to Dixon. We have 3 high schools to speak at in another program tomorrow night. What I want people to understand here is it's bad choices. It's not, parents need to be aware to be alive. What we have here tonight are gift bags. Take a few home, give one to a friend. They have the cell phone monitoring software in there with the code, the computer monitoring software. There's drug test kits in there. There's information to contact my foundation, my business card. So don't say you can't ask for help. Don't say you can't reach out. Outside of that, what other questions might we have? Yes, ma'am.
If someone chooses to go to Dixon, with their drugs and look for help, is that a rehab that parents may get financial assistance for?
Unfortunately, the program that started in Massachusetts, in 5 months, they put over 100 people into treatment, 150, I think. The program we started in Dixon, Illinois, unfortunately, is for residents of Lee County right now. I can tell you in Northern Illinois, it's about 15 police departments I'm talking with right now that will be rolling out the same program. But if you have a loved one struggling with addiction, my foundation, I can get anyone into treatment, damn near anyone, within 48 hours. And I don't care if they don't have insurance, if they have state insurance or good insurance. That's what we do.
What if they're over 18 and they say they don't really need it?
Then you call me up and I come pay them a visit and have a come to Jesus meeting with them. That's what I do.
I want to tell you a story about when I was investigating this case this last weekend. This girl went to the West Side with another girl. The other girl could be Angelina Jolie's sister. She was so beautiful. She's like 20 years old. When we went to go see her, to interview her about what happened, her hair's falling out. Pock marks all over her face, just in shambles. I asked her, I said, "Do you want to end up like your friend?" She's like, "No." "You know that's what's going to happen, right?" "Yes." "I am offering you a life of recovery right now. Do you want to take it? I will put your ass in a plane tomorrow and get you into recovery." "Well, I don't know if I could leave my friends and my dog." "Your friends are the reasons why you're in this position." I said, "Mom, did you ever hear of Tim Ryan?" She goes into her purse. "I got his card, but I never called him." I said, "I can call him now and have him here in a half hour." She goes, "Do it." Call Tim, half hour. He comes to the scene, talks to the dad, talks to the mom. That girl is on her way to Florida. He can talk the talk, he can walk the walk. Cops can't. I don't know what it's like. I don't have kids that are like that. Him and Kyle can. When she saw Kyle, she hugged him and said, "I can't believe we're here again." Kyle came out of that fold of kids who are dying, and she's next. They gotta want it. They have to want it. And thank God, Tim lives a nightmare every day he wakes up. But this is how he gives back. And he is connected with people all over the country that can help anywhere. Truly. Any other questions? Yes?
I've been told that with the drug test that there's over-the-counter stuff that counteracts it, so things don't show up in the drug test. Is this accurate or true?
The commercial ones that you get, yes, they can take some things and they can flush out their system. Heroin is a fat-soluble drug, so it will stay in their system for a little bit longer depending on the amount of fat that they have. Cocaine is a water-soluble drug, and it's out of their system within 24 hours. But these MedTox kits are used for probation and parole and for employment, and they test very minute amounts that they will pick up on.
And what you have to understand too is the kid has to know that you're going to be drug testing them to drink that stuff. So if they don't know when drug test is happening, they don't have time to go buy the golden seal or whatever the heck they're buying and drink it and hope for the best.
I wanted to tell you all about another tool that we have. Daryl, why don't you come on up here? Or you, whatever. Daryl owns a company called K9 Confidential, where if you are a parent and you think that something is amiss and your son or daughter could be hiding drugs somewhere, he is not associated to law enforcement. You contact K9 Confidential, and what happens is that he will come with his dog, and what you tell parents, you can tell them.
Sure. Basically, our dog detects all the most common street drugs: marijuana, coke, meth, heroin, and ecstasy. Our goal is to get within 3 feet of source. You'll see the dog go into a passive response. It's not an active response. They don't damage anything. They sit, and the head goes on a swivel because they're looking for their squeaky toy. That's how they get rewarded. Within that, then we look at where the drug is being indicated. We give you tips as how to search. After that, you find something, we give you tips as to how you can best dispose of it. We ask that you not just flush it down the drain. The reality is that our water treatment plants cannot filter this out. So in essence, along with all the hormones and the prescription drugs, the heroin, the coke, everything else, that residue is going into the water table. We also work with Carolyn Casina to get naloxone training. In every family that's dealing with an opiate drug addiction situation, be it heroin or painkillers, we get them 2 free kits. So, and then of course we work with Tim.
Naloxone here tonight, that's what those 2 boxes are. So if you need any, let me know. I'll get you training in about 2 minutes, lickety split, and you will walk out here with it. One thing I do want to say, you got to understand, for addicts, I don't care if it's alcohol, drugs, weed, you know what I was? I was the best liar in the world. I was a professional chameleon. I used to share my office space in the Wrigley building with a guy by the name of Dan Hampton from the Chicago Bears. Mike Wazowski from the championship 85 team zone and other business with that. I shot heroin every day. I was drunk at the Billy Goat Tavern, and they were absolutely clueless because I was the best liar in the world. I would look right at my father and my beautiful mother and lie. I would look at my gorgeous wife. I pawned her wedding ring. I took her wedding ring and sold it for $2,500 to buy heroin. You know what I did then? I helped her look for it for 3 weeks. And I said, my son, that little creep Nick, I bet you him and his asshole friends took it. Damn well known I did. You want to know why? Because that's what the disease of addiction does. You constantly lie. That's the way we're conditioned.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to say, I recently joined a support group they have, so if you guys don't know about it, it meets the second and fourth Wednesday of or Tuesday of each month over at Living Way Christian Church for anyone who has a loved one that has a problem with heroin, anyone who has a heroin addict.
What type of support group? Is that hero?
Be a hero, yeah.
Yeah, that's John Roberts and Brian Kirk. John Roberts is chief or captain of police with the Cook County Forest Preserve. He's with the Chicago Police 30 years. He's a good friend of mine. Lost his son to a heroin overdose, as did Brian. They run brief support groups. Are they running regular support groups now? Or is it?
They're running one here in the Lions.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
It was tonight, but come here. And then I just had a question, what you think about zero tolerance policy at schools, because I've struggled with this with my son. And I kind of feel like the schools, the minute your kid gets caught with something, they're expelled for a year. They're sent to frickin' Joliet for school where they don't fit in. It makes their self-esteem go down more. I feel like we need to do something more for our kids. They need to be in like a high-risk program where the parents are like drug testing them every week.
You know what?
Parents get
politics, but there's so many different variables. And you might be the parent that's gonna drug test your kids every day, but there's gonna be 10 other parents that could care less. So the school's gotta look at it. Kyle, the kid, was kicked out of high school because some other kid got busted with heroin and had a text message to Kyle that he was purchasing heroin, so he's kicked out of school. Of course, he was doing it though, but you know, whether it's marijuana, this and that, you know, it's illegal. But I can tell you, if I was in downtown Naperville now where I lived and I told Kyle the kid, I need drugs here delivered to my house within 30 minutes, he could have over 50 people bring me any drug I want. Any drug. And that'll happen right here in this backyard too. It's everywhere. So we gotta be aware about it.
This might be a totally obvious question, but what does it look like?
Heroin?
My brother died of heroin, but it's 20 years ago.
Well, you know, heroin.
People shot up and they dozed off.
And I want, there's a big misconception. The heroin addict 30 years ago was, everyone thought was a person on the corner with a needle in their arm. My son did not ever use a needle. I did, because I liked it, whatever. Heroin can be snorted, it can be injected, or it can be smoked. Kids ultimately go to the needle because it gives you a quicker high. If I snort heroin, it's going to take 5 to 6 minutes to hit me. If I inject it, there's people that have died prior to injecting the entire syringe into their arm. It's either a white or a yellowish color. It's funny you bring that, it's not funny. At my facility in Naperville, I have Northwestern University and University of Chicago doing studies with active heroin addicts right now. They come out once a week with their van, they give them free HIV testing, free Hep C. These are kids that use a needle. So I'm sitting there talking to these 5 kids last week. And I said, how many kids have Narcan? I said, is that the stuff like in Pulp Fiction you stick in your heart? And I said, no. And I had to explain what Narcan is. I trained them all, I gave it to them. I said, if you're gonna shoot up or snort it, don't do it alone. Do it with another person. If you're doing it in your house and your parents don't, God forbid, tell your mom and dad I'm doing it. So if you overdose, but the scary thing was I asked the kids, I said, what does your heroin look like? And I said, well, it's kind of a bluish pink. I said, that's not heroin, that's something called fentanyl. 1 matchstick of fentanyl will kill 10 people. A lot of the gangs now are cutting the heroin with fentanyl. 90% of the overdoses in St. Louis are not heroin, they're fentanyl. You'd need 10 of those naloxone kits to reverse someone from a fentanyl overdose. Fentanyl is used for people dying of cancer. Comes in a gel on a patch. There's kids, I just put a kid on a plane to Florida 3 days ago that's taking these 100 milligram fentanyl patches and sucking all the gel out of them. He was so high on the airplane, the mom calls me and says, my son got to Florida, but he's in the Broward County jail. So what are you talking about? Said he's so high, he tried to steal the lady's wallet sitting next to him on the plane. Any other questions? Don't be afraid to ask a question.
How many times does somebody have to do heroin before they become physically?
Once.
First time I did heroin, I snorted 1 bag. And it lasted me about 12 hours. I felt good. The next day, I called my friend and got another bag. The next day, I got 2 bags. I didn't get any the following day, and I was profusely sick. What a kid's try to do with heroin is they'll chip. Okay, I'll do it on Friday, and I'll do it on Saturday, but then I won't do it for a few days, and I won't get sick. You do it maybe 2 days in a row and take a day or 2 off, you won't get sick. But that doesn't last very long. But, you know, like I said earlier, this whole aisle, I give you heroin for 3 days in a row, everyone will be a full-blown heroin addict. It's that quick.
How often do you do these seminars?
How this works out is that actually we were doing a search warrant with Chief Sturba on a child porn guy. And he said, hey, Rich, what's going on? You know, what kind of programs you got going on? I'm known for training law enforcement in technology and teaching them how to investigate stuff. So that's how it happens. You see, every police department has what they call a drug seizure fund. And you can only buy so many vests and so many rifles, but it has to be used against the fight, the drug war. And this program fits that bill. So what we try to do is whenever he had an overdose the day before we talked, and he says, I want to get this program in here. And the chiefs made it happen. And we just go, we're going to start following the overdoses and go to that police department and say, hey, you had an overdose. You've got the money to do the program. And what the money pays for is just for our time, all these gift bags, and it goes to Tim's foundation. I'll give you an example. About 3 weeks ago, Tim, some lady from West Virginia was looking for her daughter. Knew she was on the streets of Chicago. Tim's connected to the gangs. So he went out, he found this girl with her slimeball boyfriend at some shady place downtown Chicago in the streets. He put the daughter and the mother up in a hotel for a few days with that money from the foundation, and then got that girl out to Florida to start her recovery. So that's what that money goes for. It's $5,000. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug seizure money. And we just want a little bit to do these things to empower you and to give you the tools necessary to make this work. Any other questions? Yes? We do. Tim goes into schools a lot.
I'm speaking in 3 high schools in Dixon tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm booked up a lot, but I'll tell you, a lot of the schools, there's 2 things that are happening. Hey, we don't have a problem. I've been trying to get into the Oswego schools for a year and a half until the health teacher called me. I said, do you know who I am? I lived in your town. My son went to your high school. He's dead now. My other 2 kids go to your high school. And I just put 4 kids into treatment from your town in the past 2 days. So I'm going in there. She said, why aren't? Well, they're looking at bringing in a big-name professional athlete to come in and talk. Well, this big-name professional athlete costs $20,000 to come in. He tells a good story, and then he leaves. So now you got all these damn kids in the audience struggling with substance abuse, and there's no one there to help them. When I spoke at Chris Lake Central 2 weeks ago, 5 kids, after I spoke, wanted to come talk to me. We sat in the guidance counselor's office. One of the kids is a star athlete, whose mother's a police officer, whose father is a raging alcoholic. Now they're having to move for the 4th time. And the mom, who's a police officer, is enabling the husband, and the kid's whole world's falling apart. So now I'm going to meet the mom and the son to go in and try to help the dad. But if you want us in your schools, call the damn superintendent and get us in. Kyle the kid and I will be speaking in 3 schools tomorrow, and it's powerful when I bring a 19-year-old kid in there. And you'd be amazed. I'll tell you what we do in the schools. I know it's getting late. When I've got 2,000 kids in the audience, I'll say, every kid put your head down. And I don't care if there's cops there, teachers. I said, everyone put your hand up if you got a friend that drinks. Every hand goes up. Put up a hand if you got a buddy that smokes weed. Every hand goes up. Put your hand up if you got a buddy that takes prescription pain pills. Half the hands go up. Put your hand up if you got a friend or an acquaintance that does heroin. A third of the hands go up. And you don't think we got a problem here? I commend everyone coming out here tonight, but I'm kind of pissed off. That wonderful lady right there and some other people busted their tail to get this event out in your entire community. Where is everyone? Has everyone got their head in the sand?
Not my kid.
Not my kid. We're a good Christian family. We go to church on Sunday. Let me tell you about Maggie. Naperville North grad 5 years ago. Valedictorian, top of her class. Maggie ran Bible study 3 nights a week. Ran the whole youth group. Maggie's boyfriend was a cocaine dealer. Maggie, too, did a little coke. Maggie's boyfriend at one party gave her a line. It wasn't coke, it was heroin. You know where Maggie was? 6 months after graduating Naperville North as valedictorian? Prostituting herself on the west side of Chicago. Got gang raped twice. Sport her heroin habit. By the grace of God, Maggie's now a little over 3 years clean and sober back in college at the Page. That's where this addiction will take you, and it will take you there like that. But this is where I met with Papa Lynn the other day, state's attorney in Page County. I told him about some of the things we're doing. And this man's cutting edge. He said, Tim, think about this. What if one of my officers pulls over a kid with 5 bags of heroin? takes them to the police station and calls someone from your foundation to come in and meet with that kid. Kid, you got two choices right now. We're putting you into treatment on the spot. You got 5 bags of heroin, you definitely have a substance abuse issue. Or we can file the charges. If you go to treatment, you stay clean and sober 6 months, pass drug tests, do everything right, we'll never file these charges. That's what we need to start doing. That's just my opinion.
Yes.
Question I want to ask, you said if you did or to vacate or expunge, will there ever be a time to vacate or expunge a felony for these kids that were picked up in possession? I understand that you can't vacate or expunge a felony, right?
Things are changing, Chris.
So am I going to see it for my kid, or is it going to?
It's gonna take time. It's gonna take time, you know, but if they do the right things, you'd be amazed at what happens.
Yeah, again, we're all saying we can't arrest our way out of it. We got to get them into recovery. We got to save them. Dealers, we don't care. But the fact of the matter is, we need to change our laws.
Don't leave without taking some bags.
We need to change things. We meet with Mike Connolly, Senator Connolly, all the time, trying to change these laws, and he's down with it. We got to get the state's attorneys involved to have them be a driving force. And yes, we need to do these for these addicts. That's where it starts.
You know, Lou Lang just passed the H-1B bill in Illinois, House Bill 1, to help with the opiate epidemic. But a lot of the drug courts, if your child's in drug court and they screw up once, they're kicked out of drug court. Lou Lang has now passed it towards 3 times. Unfortunately, drug addicts slip up occasionally. Okay, we'll give you a couple chances here, instead of giving you 1. But on the flip side, relapse is part of the journey. BS, you never have to relapse. I was never in recovery. I just went through the motions to make mom and dad happy or shut my wife up. And I like fellowship, but I always thought in the back of my mind, I'd go drink and use like a normal person one day. You don't have to go to the Illinois Department of Corrections like I did and lose everything to get clean and sober. And college kids are sitting in example.
Any other questions?
Tim, what's
Yes.
your recommended inpatient treatment span? I deal with a lot of
It's
inpatient.
never long enough. Problem with inpatient treatment now,
28 days is.
that's a joke.
Right.
See, I happen in my full-time job, I work for a place called Banyan Treatment Center out of Pompano Beach, Florida. I can take your child here that you send to any local treatment center in the state of Illinois. Of course, it's decent insurance or cash pay. They can go here for 3 to 4 weeks. I can keep them down there with the same insurance plan for 6 months in a step-down program. Where do you think they have a better chance? My son was in Gateway 5 times and Rosecrans once, and I'm not knocking Gateway or Rosecrans. He loved treatment. But then he's right home to the same friends, the same environment. What's his chance of staying sober? 0. So our system's broken, so we have to work with what we have. I mean, I've had kids, I run opiate recovery groups. Monday night in Dixon, Tuesday night I have one in Streeter and Crystal Lake. Wednesday night I got one in Arlington Heights. Thursday I have one in Naperville. We're gonna be getting one out here. Well, we have the parents come with the addicts at the same time. How many people attend my group here? Put your hands up. How's it been for you, Robin? How long you been coming?
Over a year, but very.
How about you, Chris?
Over a year.
How about you, Tom? A year. Annette?
About 10 months.
And these parents come and support each other. Some of their kids are unfortunately passed away, some are sober, some are active addiction, whatever. But then we got the addicts coming in too. Gotta help each other here. Anyone else? Don't be afraid to ask a question. You're here.
Go ahead.
I heard something about spoons disappearing or something.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
What's that?
When I got the spoon, that's what I put my heroin in. Then I put a little water in that spoon and I heat it up. And I cook all the impurities out of the heroin. If you're missing cotton tips or Q-tips, I'm pulling that cotton off there and putting it in there. And I'm drawing that heroin out with my syringe. And that's why all those spoons are disappearing, because they're burned on the bottom. So they're throwing them out or putting them in their car. How many officers here pulled people over and found a spoon in their car? You know? Or bottle tops. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and being empowered by all means. take the gift bags. They are for you. They were purchased by your police departments to take home and to use. The codes are on the paperwork that are in there for the free software and discounted software.
Take a few. Take whatever you need.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.